It's the most magical time of the year, and I'm not talking about Christmas. I'm talking about the NFL season. So make sure you're ready with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Get the most live NFL games all in one place. Right now, you can save $85 when you bundle NFL Sunday Ticket with YouTube TV. Sign up today at youtubetv.com/Spotify. Device and content restrictions apply. Discount applied to first 4 months of YouTube TV, then $72.99 a month. Ends August 29th. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. No refunds.
This episode is brought to you by Bai. It's Wonder Water. What makes Bai so great? It's simple. From Raspberry Lemon Lime by Sydney Sweeney to Zambia Bing Cherry and Palavo Pineapple Mango, Bai has antioxidants, electrolytes, and no artificial sweeteners. So for flavorful hydration, choose Bai. It's Wonder Water. Learn more about Bai and discover all of the exotic, bold flavors at drinkbai.com.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, everyone, and welcome on in to another edition of Eagles Memories here on the Eagles Pin Pull Podcast. I'm your host, John Stolnis from Bleeding Green Nation. It is good to talk to you again here. It's been a couple of weeks. I was dealing with a pretty nasty cold and some family stuff. Had to step away for a few weeks, but really happy to be back on the microphone and taking a look back at the 2004 Eagles season 20 years later. That team that went all the way to the Super Bowl, unfortunately, ultimately losing to the cheating New England Patriots. But we're going to get into that next week. This is going to be our penultimate show. This will be our second last show of Eagles Memories here. Now that the Eagles are in training camp, we're getting ready for the 2024 season. We are going to start ramping up and switching over to Eye on the Enemy here on this podcast. But I think the way we're going to handle these last two Eagles Memories episodes for now is we're going to take you through the end of the regular season here on this week's episode. Next week, I'll take you through the divisional round and the NFC Championship game. And then, as we get closer to this year's Super Bowl, we'll take a look back at the 2004 Super Bowl between the Eagles and Patriots on the 20th anniversary of that game. So we'll save the Super Bowl recap for the end of the year. You know, it didn't end well for the Eagles. So do you want to deep dive right now as we're getting into the 2024 season? Probably not, but we will talk about the Super Bowl. We'll get into the Super Bowl, and maybe we'll have a couple of guests on during the course of the season about their memories of that 2004 Super Bowl run, so we can put together a really nice podcast on that as we get closer to the end of the season. So for this week, we're going to take a look back at the last three games, the last three consequential games of the 2004 Philadelphia Eagles season. And we will start off in week 13, picking up where we left off last time. The Eagles taking on the Green Bay Packers at Lincoln Financial Field. And this one was maybe their best performance of the season. I know they looked great against the Cowboys in Dallas on that Monday Night Football game, and it's hard to argue that they could play any better than they did in that game. But here against the Packers, a playoff team, a team that came into this game 7-4, having won 6 straight games, a team with Brett Favre still at the helm at the height of his powers. You know, this was a game that everyone expected to be a really close battle between two of the top teams in the NFC, but instead it was an Eagles laugher. Eagles came in at 10-1. The Eagles had already locked up the NFC East with their win over the Giants in Week 12, but now we're trying to secure home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs and needed a couple more wins to do that. This game against the Packers was a rematch of the 2003 NFC divisional round game from the year before. I remember that game, the 4th and 24 game, of course, when the Eagles came back from 14-0 down in the second half. And then the miracle of all miracles, hitting that 4th and 24 play with the clock ticking down just under 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. McNabb hitting Freddie Mitchell for that miracle catch at midfield, which then led to the game-tying field goal to force overtime. Well, this is just a few months after that game. And again, I think this was the most complete win of the season. Great job by the defense holding down Brett Favre. They had Javon Walker at the time, Robert Ferguson, Donald Driver, a great trio of wide receivers. that were really hard to keep out of the end zone, and the Eagles did a great job of that. I mean, it was truly a runaway here. The Eagles started off the scoring on their first possession of the game. They didn't waste any time, with McNabb hitting his favorite target. Terrell Owens in stride for a 41-yard score, Owens' 14th touchdown grab of the season.
Put off the ground and complete that pass. Are you kidding me?
A blitz coming from Green Bay here, and it's Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens sniffing the end zone, and he is in. Touchdown, Philadelphia.
There we go.
Now, that put him one away from 15 touchdowns on the year, and one of the things that we talked about earlier in one of the earlier podcasts was he made a bet with Andy Reid that if he scored 15 touchdowns in the regular season, that Andy Reid would have to wear Terrell Owens' white tights that Owens liked to wear in practice that Andy Reid hated. Andy Reid got on him about wearing the white tights in practice, and Owens said, I'll tell you what, let me wear the tights, and if I catch 15 touchdown passes for you, you have to wear the tights. And Andy Reid agreed to it. In this game here, I mean, we're talking about, this is week 13. He's already got 14 touchdown grabs, so it looks like it's going to happen that Owens is going to catch number 15 at some point, but it didn't happen in this game. In the second quarter, the Eagles really turned it on, scoring 4 unanswered touchdowns in these 15 minutes. Brian Westbrook is up first, hauling in a 9-yard screen pass from McNabb to make it 14-0.
Third down and 5. McNabb comes back to this side of the field. Westbrook, touchdown, Philadelphia.
He'd follow that up on the next possession with a 41-yard score on a beautifully executed wheel route on 3rd and less than 1.
3rd down and 1. McNabb keeps it, throws it. Wide open is Westbrook. Boy, they make it look easy. Touchdown, Philadelphia. You talk about a confident Eagles offense. It's willing to call any and everything, no matter down and distance. 3rd and less than 1, and this is what happens.
And then backup tight end L.J. Smith got into the action, earning the team's 4th touchdown on this 6-yard pass to make it 28-0 here in the second quarter.
First and goal from the 6. McNabb rolls to his right, throws, Smith, touchdown. L.J. Smith gets his 4th of the year. And everybody's been in on the fun with McNabb spreading the ball around since the opening kickoff.
And that's a great point, Joe, because that's exactly what Donovan McNabb has been doing, not only in this game, but throughout the season. Because of the weapons that I talked about, Donovan McNabb's been able to come back and find the open guy. He's not just been forcing the ball into Terrell Owens. This time they come out on the half boot. They got L.J. Smith coming out to the corner, get the ball in his hands, and he gets it in.
You know, the amazing thing about McNabb is how trusted he is in the red zone. Coming into this game since 2000, in the red zone, he's thrown 70 touchdown passes and only 2 interceptions.
And then Brian Westbrook piled up his 3rd touchdown of the day on a slant pattern, beautifully thrown by Donovan from 12 yards out to make it 35-0.
Already Donovan McNabb has thrown 4 touchdown passes, make it 5. Westbrook.
No way can you get out there with Brian Westbrook with wide receiver skills on a safety and win that battle. That's just too easy.
So the Eagles put up 35 unanswered points before a Green Bay field goal just before halftime made it 35-3. And then David Akers went on a field goal blitz in the third quarter. The score reached 47-3 at one point. That's right. The Eagles had a 44-point lead at one point in the second half before some Green Bay garbage time scores. Donovan threw 5 touchdowns in the first half. Brian Westbrook hauled in 3 of those touchdown catches. Green Bay's defense obviously had no idea what to do with Andy Reid's passing game. 449 yards through the air for the Eagles and 542 yards total in this one. Donovan McNabb's line at the end of the day, the box score looked beautiful. 32 of 43 for 464 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 147.8 passer rating. Westbrook finished with 11 catches. 11 catches for the running back for 156 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns in the game. Owens, also a big game, just the 1 touchdown, but 8 catches for 161 yards. Brett Favre, who, if you'll remember, in that 4th and 24 game, this kind of gets lost in the 4th and 24 madness, but the Green Bay Packers had the ball first in overtime, and he just chucked one up for grabs on their first possession, a brutal interception that was pulled down by Brian Dawkins in that playoff game the year before. Well, he was even worse in this game. 14 of 29 for 131 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He was pulled from the game once it got out of hand for a gentleman named Craig Nall was the backup quarterback, and he mopped up in this game. Defensively, Sheldon Brown and Brian Dawkins both had interceptions, so Dawkins got Favre in his book one more time, while Corey Simon and Darwin Walker each had a big day rushing the passer, sacking Favre 2 times each. Dexter Wynn added another sack in the Eagles' 47-17 win over the Green Bay Packers. And remember, this was a good Packers team. This is a Packers team that made the playoffs, but it ran the Eagles' record to 11-1. And I think it really showed the difference between the Eagles and the other teams in the NFC, more than any of the blowouts against the divisional opponents, the Dallas game on Monday Night Football. This was a good Green Bay Packers team, and the Eagles absolutely annihilated them. It was, in my opinion, it was the best win of the year, the most complete win of the year against a really, really good opponent. Now, in Week 14, the Eagles maybe suffered a little bit of a letdown, and they faced a divisional opponent that second time around gave them a lot more trouble, taking on the Washington then Redskins at this is at FedEx Field. This is when FedEx Field was still new and not a giant hole in the earth. And I was at this game. I was actually sitting in the press box for Westwood One as we were calling the radio action for this one, and it was a nail-biter. Washington played the Eagles tough on this Sunday night ESPN matchup, and it started right from the opening kickoff.
David Akers will kick it away. James Thrash and Liddell Betts are deep for the Redskins, and we're set to go in front of 91,000 plus in Washington. Betts. Midfield and more. Akers missed him. Betts inside the 15-yard line. A 66-yard return, but hold the phone. A penalty marker back at the 32.
And that penalty turned out to be a face mask call on the Eagles, which set Washington up even closer to the end zone at the 5-yard line. And on second down, Clinton Portis, their star running back, didn't waste any time, scoring his first touchdown of the game. However, the Eagles answered right back thanks to a long pass interference penalty that put the ball at the Washington 2. McNabb then hit L.J. Smith again from 2 yards out.
It's a 47-yard penalty. McNabb with an empty backfield. Throws complete to L.J. Smith. Touchdown.
Mike.
Boy, what fireworks early.
Yeah, what fireworks, but this is all Donovan McNabb. This is the one thing, Joe, that they talked about you cannot allow him to do, and that's to move outside of the pocket.
But after those initial fireworks, the defenses held strong, and the two teams went into the locker room tied at 7. Some drives here and there that were ended in sacks or turnovers or fumbles, and both teams really were just having trouble maintaining their offense. 1 week after putting up 47 on Green Bay, the Eagles were struggling with the Washington defense. In the third quarter, the Eagles broke through first thanks to a David Akers field goal. And with time running out in the third quarter, the Eagles scored another touchdown with McNabb hitting Greg Lewis, taking it all the way down to the 1-yard line, where Dorsey Levens then punched it in from there.
McNabb with time down the middle, complete to the 1-yard line to Greg Lewis.
Well, we talk about
throw.
Yeah, it's a great throw, and I'll tell you what, we talk about Sean Taylor hitting you. He saves a touchdown here. This is just a magnificent throw.
Now you've got the pressure of Donovan in the pocket, out of the pocket, running, not running.
Dorsey Levens, the running back on first and goal, and Levens, the veteran. Touchdown.
That made it 17-7, but Washington wasn't done yet. Portis punched it in from 2 yards out to make it 17-14 in the fourth quarter, and then it was sweaty palms time. Patrick Ramsey actually had a chance to tie the game or win the game as the fourth quarter ticked down, driving the ball inside the Eagles' 25 with less than 2 minutes left. They were already in field goal range. They could have tied it at 17 if Ramsey did nothing else but fall down in his remaining downs. But instead, Ramsey committed an incredibly boneheaded mistake.
Ramsey just throws it up for grabs, and Dawkins intercepts. Just an awful throw by Patrick Ramsey. Tossed it up in the corner, and the two closest players to it were wearing green jerseys.
The decision to throw it was worse than the throw.
Not much.
He's got time.
Yeah, but Joe, all you see are two green jerseys. That's all you see. And he's throwing this ball to Cooley.
Lito Shepherd and Dawkins both had their hands on the ball, and had it happened 10 years later with all of the controversy around the catch rules, I'm not sure that the interception would have stood, because it did look like the ball was still moving a little bit when Dawkins went to the ground, falling out of bounds. But they ruled it a catch and an interception after replay, and the Eagles escaped the nation's capital with a 17-14 win, handed to them by Ramsey's idiotic throw. And this is the difference between the Eagles and the rest of the teams in the division that year. The Eagles had a real functioning quarterback. None of the other teams had a functioning quarterback. You had Patrick Ramsey with Washington. You had Vinny Testaverde with the Dallas Cowboys, and with the Giants, you had an aging Kurt Warner at that point, and then Eli Manning, who was a rookie at this point, not ready for primetime yet. Nowhere close to the level of quarterback Donovan McNabb. And the Eagles really benefited in this season from playing all those substandard quarterbacks.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're going to love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
When you need to work quickly and confidently, you need Grammarly. It's a trusted AI writing partner that helps you get work done faster with better writing. And it works where you work, across 500,000 apps and websites. 96% of users agree Grammarly helps them craft more impactful writing. Get AI writing support that works where you work. Sign up and download for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's Grammarly.com/podcast. Grammarly. Easier said, done.
Now, in this game, McNabb, kind of pedestrian. 21 of 38 for 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. As a whole, it was a struggle for the Eagles offense. Washington actually had more first downs, 19-15. The Eagles only with 15 first downs in this game, and both teams had 312 total yards. Penalties were a killer for Washington, 12 for 137 yards. It was a quiet day for Owens. Washington kept him out of the end zone. Just 6 catches for 46 yards, no touchdowns, and T.O. lost a fumble in this one as the Eagles were driving. In fact, it happened on a very memorable series of plays in this game. Todd Pinkston really caught a lot of flack from the fan base in this one for a deep pass that Donovan threw him, and I think you'll remember Pinkston got alligator arms, like he pulled his arms in on a ball that he could have caught down the middle of the field, worried about getting hit. I mean, I as a non-football player, I can understand. That probably would have been my reaction too. But Pinkston didn't catch a long bomb that he should have because he was worried about contact. However, later in the game, he made up for it with an 80-yard completion before being hauled down at the 4-yard line. But right after that play is when Owens, trying to score his 15th touchdown of the season, fumbled away that scoring opportunity. So the Eagles had a chance to make this a larger margin, but turned the ball, a rare turnover from T.O. in that spot. Westbrook had more than 100 yards from scrimmage. Jeremiah Trotter, the big star on defense outside of the Dawkins interception, 10 tackles in this game. Sam Rayburn, Hugh Douglas, and Darwin Walker also had sacks in the Eagles' 17-14 win over Washington in Week 14. So now, as we enter Week 15, there's still 3 more games to play, but the Eagles just need 1 win to clinch the top spot in the NFC with 2 weeks to play, taking on a Cowboys team that they just demolished in Dallas a few weeks ago. And the Eagles did win this game, but as we all remember, it came with an ominous price. A scoreless first quarter in which both teams saw drives stall on a cold and rainy day at the Link finally ended up with McNabb and the Eagles breaking through first thanks to a 2-yard touchdown pass from McNabb to tight end Chad Lewis.
2nd down and goal at the 2, and it'll be a pass play. And the pass is caught. What a play made for a touchdown by Chad Lewis. Chad Lewis, and a flag is down, just timed his leap against all the Dallas defenders.
It was a gorgeous ball with McNabb backpedaling and tossing one up for Lewis in the back of the end zone. He was well covered, but Lewis went up at the highest point and got it. Just a great play by Lewis and a good throw by McNabb, even if it was a little bit dangerous. However, Akers missed the extra point, so it was 6-0 Eagles. On a subsequent drive, the Cowboys sacked McNabb and forced a fumble, setting Vinny Testaverde up for a 7-yard touchdown pass to Keyshawn Johnson. And they kicked the extra point, and that's all the scoring we had in the first half. It was 7-6 heading into the locker room on a dreary, rainy, cold December day at the Link. And for the second straight week, the Eagles were struggling with a subpar divisional rival that they had dominated just a few weeks before. And then things seemingly got a lot worse. On their opening possession of the third quarter, McNabb hit Owens on a 20-yard crossing route. But Owens was taken to the ground awkwardly thanks to a horse collar tackle by Roy Williams.
Defensive holding call against Dallas, resulting in a first down for the Eagles. And here is McNabb drilling it, and it's caught by Terrell Owens. His second catch of the day, and this one for substantial yardage. 20 yards and a first down into Dallas territory. Williams covering, and now he's slowly getting up and running, trying to run and shake it off, I guess, as he runs off the field.
Well, I tell you, Andy Reid he's got to be standing over there going, don't let this happen. Watch at the end of the play. Now, Roy Williams is going to come in and get him down. The way he brings him down right there is his right ankle. It's that, he's grabbing at his knee, but watch at the end. Watch his foot get kind of caught in the grass.
And he is really limping as he goes back to the bench. He was struggling going back to the bench, and there he is now being worked on.
We talked over and over why this Eagles offense is so good is because they didn't have injuries. Now, all of a sudden, late in the season, this is not what they want. What he's got to do right now, he's got to be smart. Sit down, let the trainers take a look at you, figure out what's wrong right now. Are you going in? If you're going in, get on a cart. Don't walk in. Have somebody get you on that cart. Don't take the chance of doing more damage on the way in if it's something serious.
Now, that horse collar tackle by Williams was the play that resulted in the NFL putting in a rule that outlawed the tackle where you grab the receiver from just behind the helmet and pull him down backwards. Owens' knee and ankle twisting in a really nasty way underneath him as he was brought down. Williams didn't need to bring him down like that, but he did. It looked scary. And Owens, as you could hear the Darryl Johnston saying, like, stop trying to run it off. Stop trying to walk it off. Don't make it worse. You could tell that Owens desperately was trying to convince himself that it wasn't serious. But I think he knew. I think the rest of the team knew. We could seeing it on TV. It looked bad. And everybody's heart just sank into the pit of their stomachs. Because here you have this guy, Terrell Owens, who was the answer. He was the reason they were going to win the Super Bowl. His addition made them a completely different team. But when you watched that play, you knew that his season was over. I mean, you were still holding out hope. You were praying. We were all praying for a prognosis. Oh, it's not as bad as it looks. Oh, it's not as bad as it looks. It looked worse than it was. But as we'll find out after the game, it wasn't worse than it looked. It was as bad as everyone feared. McNabb was intercepted a couple plays after the Owens injury, and the Cowboys had a chance to extend the lead, but Billy Cundiff, their field goal kicker, missed a 46-yard field goal later in the fourth quarter. So McNabb, again, still trailing just 7-6, finally led the team downfield by returning to his roots. Without Terrell Owens out there to throw the football to, Donovan started using his legs once again, pulling off runs of 12 yards and then 19 yards, which put them in touchdown range inside the red zone, with Dorsey Levens eventually scoring from 2 yards out.
Try and make a stop, hold them to a field goal, and lose some time on the clock.
Now, you got to try and stop it. The precipitation for Dick Stockton is increasing, so you could see a fumble. I mean, that ball looks slippery from where I'm standing right here.
And if you hold them to a field goal, at least you only need a field goal to win the game if it comes down to that. Here's the handoff, and it's a touchdown. Dorsey Levens, his second in as many weeks.
Well, so much for what we think, Moose.
The Eagles tried another two-point conversion, but missed. They tried a two-point conversion to make up for the extra point that they missed, but missed the two-point conversion as well. So it was 12-7 Eagles. Vinny Testaverde had one last shot to try and score, but Lito Shepherd ended those hopes with an interception to ice the game.
Testaverde's pass, intercepted, overthrown, and Lito Shepherd. And the Eagles protecting the ball and a minute and 33 seconds away from clinching home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs.
So the Eagles improved to 13-1, rendering the rest of their regular season schedule meaningless. They would go on to play only their reserves in the final 2 weeks, both losses to the Rams and the Bengals. So really, this is a team that could have gone 15-1. They ended up 13-3, but they could have gone 15-1 if they'd played all their regulars against the Rams and the Bengals. But obviously, there was no reason to do that. Just the number of 15-1 teams in NFL history are few and far between. But the Eagles and their fans were happy with 13-3 and the top seed in the NFC. And everyone was now focusing on Terrell Owens. In beating the Cowboys, it was the first time in franchise history that the Eagles would finish a season undefeated against their division rivals, beating their division rivals 6 times, 6-0, beating Dallas, Washington, and New York. The loss of T.O. meant that he would finish the season with 14 touchdowns, so Andy Reid escaped having to wear those tights. And as we would all find out later after the game, it was the worst-case scenario. Owens had broken his leg and a torn ligament in his right ankle, an injury that was expected to keep him out 8 to 10 weeks. If you did the math in the moment, the Super Bowl was 7 weeks away. It seemed unlikely that the Eagles would have their star wide receiver to make another Super Bowl run. He certainly would not be there for the start of the postseason. They would have to win a couple of postseason games. There was a bye week between the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. The Eagles were holding out a little bit of hope. There was a small glimmer, but that glimmer was not very bright. And Eagles fans were trying to wrap their minds around another Super Bowl run without a star wide receiver. It was really depressing. It was really, really depressing losing Terrell Owens against the Cowboys on a dirty tackle. And it was just one of those things where nothing you can, I mean, you're in position. You know, the Eagles finished with a franchise best 13-3 record. The rest of the teams in the division all finished 6-10. They had a 2-game advantage over the Falcons, who were 11-5 with the second best record in the NFL, in the NFC, pardon me. The Packers won their division at 10-6, and the Seahawks won the West at 9-7. The 2 wildcard teams were the Rams and the Vikings. So the Eagles at 13-3, top spot in the NFC, but without Terrell Owens. It just, after a magical storybook season, we were concerned that the driving force of the offense all year was going to be out for the playoffs. And would a similar fate await the 2004 Eagles that visited them the previous 3 seasons? Would they fall short in the playoffs once again? It seemed unfathomable that it could happen a 4th time, and yet it seemed all too real a possibility. And I don't know what would have happened to that team if they'd lost a 4th straight NFC title game, or if they'd failed to get to the Super Bowl. It's hard to think what might have happened. As we will find out next week as we talk about the divisional round game against the Vikings and the NFC Championship game against the Falcons, we wouldn't have to worry about that. But for a little while there, we were wondering, is this team actually cursed? Like, for real cursed? It sure felt like Owens breaking his leg against the Cowboys just when it seemed like things were at their best, that the fates would not allow it, that the Eagles actually were a cursed team. It was hard to escape that reality and that possibility and that thought process, but the evidence in hand was overwhelming that the Eagles were a cursed organization. But we'll get into the playoffs here on next week's edition of Eagles Memories. We'll talk about the Vikings game. We'll talk about the Falcons game. I was at both of those games, and man, I'll tell you about how the crowd felt, the energy in the room, and all that kind of stuff. And the Eagles finally breaking through that 4th time in the NFC Championship game to get to the Super Bowl, doing it all without Terrell Owens. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of Eagles Memories, and I would hope that you're telling your friends about the Eagles Pin Pull Network. Again, with BGN Radio gone, with the Bleeding Green Nation podcast feed gone, a lot of us are now over here. There's a number of different shows that you can listen to. We're growing the feed every single week. During the regular season, we're hoping to have like a different show every day. Right now, you've got Birds of the Round Table, you've got On the Shane Page, you've got Chalk Talk. So there's lots of stuff that you can listen to right now, in addition to Eagles Memories and Eye on the Enemy as we get a little closer to the season as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Eagles Memories.